didn't even touch on that.
Yeah, it's like you have to sacrifice a creature and even target it. There's no
Wow.
guarantee you even kill it.
And look at you called it right there. If Spike is on this hand, it's got Sorin, it's got Vein Ripper on turn 3. Now, whether or not that's good enough is maybe a different question, but that is certainly the combo you want to see.
It looks like Corey is on the play, and it does look like there's quite a few counter spells lined up to maybe try to interact with all the Profane Tutor, Sorin Imperious Bloodlord, the One Ring. But if there's one thing that Black is known for, it's discard spells, and that is the bane of a counter spell deck.
That's right. So, all right, yeah. Turn 1 Ragavan, just the flagstones and Urborg here. Turn 2 Kavu. Well, Corey did say something about his deck being Zoo, and that's going to be an option available to him. Let's just go creature, creature.
Yeah, it looks like it's gonna be a good curve out, and actually it looks like it looks like Corey's hand is actually going to line up very well versus Aspiring Spike's hand right here because he's gonna get really ahead on mana, also quite ahead on the board. There's like nothing blocking, there's no interaction from Spike, at least for the first 2 turns. Unless he
And
can rip the perfect card, which would be a Smallpox, sacrificing the Flagstone of Trocare to go get a land anyway.
yeah, that would have been absolutely ideal with that Urborg enabling that the classic. Corey exiling we mentioned Liliana's. Corey gets it with the exile from the Ragavan. Spike could end up getting thoughts used himself the way this is going. But looks like now, yeah, you talked about Corey's hand lining up. He's got threats in play and he's got counter spells to sit behind.
Interesting line of not playing the Territorial Cavu, making sure that there's no chance of that Smallpox even resolving, because that would still be a beating. And there's like no cost to waiting one more turn, attack with
hmm
the Ragavan, get another treasure token, play your Territorial Cavu, and still have Counterspell up for the Sorin, Liliana type of hands, or even if there was a Smallpox going to be available on this turn.
Yeah, and the only if we start trying to forecast ahead a little bit here, Spike is going to have the One Ring as follow up. But Corey with Force Negation and Leyline Binding has ways to keep it from at least going wild over several turns. And all the while, Ragavan's going to be just hanging away.
And we are going to see a Territorial Cavu, which is at least a 4/4 now and can get bigger as time goes on.
All right, a second Flagstones for Spike. Adds the
That
mana, is going to go ahead and play it. Does the trick here, gets to go fetch out another land from the deck. Doesn't necessarily, make anything wild happen in this particular circumstance, but allows you to kind of hedge against the legendary drawback there and try to cast Sorin.
Gonna eat a counter spell, and then it looks like, or he's gonna go back to the turn, attack for 6, put Spike down to 10, have Force of Negation up. And remember, there is a Lightning Bolt in hand, so Aspiring Spike is effectively at 13 life at this point. After taking 6, we'll go down to 7. Very close. Very, very close.
Yeah, so the interesting thing here is if Corey goes for the second Kavu, will not would not have had up the Force of Negation, except for the fact that off of uh, that last Kavu trigger was able to find a Leyline of the Guild Pact, which provides that blue card to force to pitch to the Force to really possibly change things. That said, Profane Tutor coming off the suspend for Spike.
Yeah, but what can Spike get to get back in this game here? He chooses the Sorin, trying to go for Sorin number 2, but unfortunately, it's just gonna eat, well, actually, not the
Although
Sorin, the
runs
One
out the
Ring.
ring, yeah,
1 ring to eat a Force of Negation, and
and that'll do
snap
it.
concede.
Well, that was Soren Vein Ripper's powerful, but Ragavan just completely took over that game. It was just the fact that Corey was able to every turn he just passes with counterspell mana open, and Spike has to run something into it. Just gets further and further behind both the damage and the mana provided by the monkey there.
I would say one thing that hurt Aspiring Spike in that game was being on the draw, not having anything to do on turn 1
Yeah.
to interact with Corey was a little bit unfortunate. But he's gonna be on the play now, so all the 2 drops gonna come in right on time.
Yeah, looking over the sideboards here, looks like Corey's deck just becomes a slightly different looking pile of cards. But yeah, sort of picks his pieces a little bit here. Also, pick your poison to interact with the ring from Spike. In addition to maybe it'll come up with something else here. I guess hey, it
Ooh,
can
it
make
hits
a
the Vein
sacrifice a
Ripper.
vein ripper. Yeah.
That's right. Vein Ripper flies. Sack all your flyers. Sorry, Vein Ripper, I didn't even target you. I didn't even target you.
Yeah, it's a big game. An additional interaction from Spike here in the form of Celestial Purge. That makes sense. A Celestial Purge in that game would have made a huge difference to be able to take out that Ragavan that was providing all of that value. It'll also hit the Fable. It will also hit the Kavus. It can hit a Leyline, I suppose, if that was the direction you wanted to go. But yeah, Celestial Purge, a pretty powerful classic sideboard option here.
Purge actually is pretty good, yeah, on those ley line turns when you have to try to deal with the sign of Draco. If you need to target it, then you could after you eat up the ley line. Although I'm not sure Spike's deck has anything that would target the Scion. I think it's just like Liliana, make you sack. Liliana, make you sack. But it would turn off the Sinner proof creatures.
Yeah, and hey, it's a nice. You can see the way that the format has sort of evolved around it. Spike's deck is built to interact with it
Mhm.
without interacting with it directly. Another innovation here, another addition to Modern is the Surveil lands, allowing Spike to bottom a fatal push, as he doesn't want.
Yeah, I guess not wanting it because it's not really on curve. We have better options to do on turn 2, either between Tutor, Pox, Celestial Purge. Nothing played on turn 1, though. The Tutor it is.
This is looking much better if you're Spike. You have a smallpox lined up. You have extra land, so even though you don't really have a quote unquote value smallpox, it's very possible that, especially when you're on the play, taking away a triome type mana source for Corey is super powerful in its own right. So Corey, on the other hand, is basically looking at a pile of magic cards in his hand without a a, any type of synergies, but does have a Scion Draco, and that's pretty good. It's big.
I wonder if we're going to see a Pox now. Or maybe the Liliana, actually. This was just top deck.
What a
And
draw.
unfortunately for Corey, no blue card in hand to use the Force of Negation.
Wow, what a draw for Spike there. That takes down the Scion. That was what Corey didn't want to see. He called it out. Was late Liliana the Veil, and that just ruined his day. Not having a blue card to pitch the Force of Negation, a real cost. And now, totally different game. I mean, he's looking at how does he want to answer Liliana. He's got options to Fable if he wants to play a longer term game here. You can dash out Ragavan to just take Liliana off the board. But maybe he decides that we'll play out a slightly different game here and try to play ahead for future turns with this Fable the Mirror Breaker. Like that's what he does.
This literally is a line out of like 2014. Oh, you
Yeah.
tapped out on turn 2 with your creature?
Yeah.
Liliana the Veil. Sacrifice it. Oh, by the way, I still have a Liliana the Veil on the battlefield.
Yeah, and you've been playing Merfolk in all kinds of tournaments to extremely good results, by the way, for anybody listening at home. So you're very
Oh, I
familiar
thank you,
with like
thank
the
you.
danger of Liliana, right?
Yeah, if I can kill it immediately, great, like with a Mutavault, but if
Yeah,
it sticks on
Mutavault.
the board, oh, it is a pain. Like, if I can't it ticks up, go to 2, I gotta discard a card, and now it's ready to eat up another creature no matter what I play.
Hmm.
No, it's very sickening card to deal with.
I saw that you had to as part of you mentioned that you had to cut cards you didn't want to cut, and it looked like some of them might have been Mutavaults.
Just for the Urza Saga. In my mind, I'm upgrading Mutavault for that Urza Saga.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Well, speaking of upgrades, Vein Ripper has upgraded Aspiring Spike's board here coming in off of Soren with Liliana ticked up to 2. I mean, Corey made the decision to tap out for that Fable. The other option was just falling further behind on board if you're trying to hold up one of the other interaction spells. So this is it now. Can Corey find an answer to Vein Ripper plus multiple planeswalkers? and Spike just sitting on perfect
Well,
cards over there.
let's see what comes off of this Fable of the Mirror Breaker loot, or rummage, I should say, because the board is not super terrible. You can Leyline Binding the Vein Ripper, sacrifice your Goblin Shaman, put
Hmm.
Ragavan in play with Dash, eat up the Liliana, and then a Sorin with no creature in play. Not the worst thing in the world,
True.
and you still have a Fable in play.
Yeah, very well said, and we'll see what direction Corey decides to take here. But that is certainly a line back into the game that being able to answer a vein ripper and not just being okay, right click concede is basically all you can ask for when someone resolves their Sorin Hell vein ripper combo.
Alternatively, I guess you could play like Ragavan for one, Leyline Binding the Vein Ripper, attack with your Goblin Shaman, and actually get a treasure out of it. That may not be the worst either.
Right. Step one, fetch. Step two, tap the Sacred Foundry for red mana. Corey working through a lot of options here.
Mhm.
Those look like you called it one red mana to cast the Ragavan.
Step 2, attack.
Yeah. Pick up a treasure, slam this leyline binding. Yeah, this is going to work out okay for Corey in the sense that the game is not over. Right?
Mhm.
The game is not just over to the Planeswalkers plus the Vein Ripper. The game is, in fact, far from over. But this is not the worst spot. You talked about it, an open sore, and not the end of the world here. And Corey is even sitting on Force of Negation mana thanks to that treasure token he was able to secure thanks to the flash on the binding.
Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, there are 2 answers to this Goblin token.
Hmm.
Oh, interesting, just lets the Goblin token get eaten up. Gonna save the Force and Negation for something spicier.
Uh, we'll see how that works out for him because now the danger is that Soren is ticking up and a second Vein Ripper has joined Spike's hand. So could have another one in play. And now Corey does not have an abundance of creatures to sacrifice to pay that ward cost, of course, which
Mhm.
really the secret, the power that people I think miss when they first read Vein Ripper is that this is a really difficult cost to pay when this hits play in turn three.
I thought that Corey would have trouble with cards in this matchup, given how, attrition-y the Aspiring Spikes deck is. But it
Hmm.
seems like it's not even a problem at all. Look, Expressive Iteration, turn 5, gonna, grind into a bunch of cards and followed up by another Expressive Iteration, anytime he wants.
Yeah, he's just gonna have to find an answer. It looks like to the future Vein Ripper coming. So top of the library choices: Murktide Regent, Avu, Wooded Foothill. So we'll see what he wants to do here. He does have the mana available to put the Regent into play. I think, based on what's in the graveyard, but if not, definitely a low option to the Kavu. So yeah, it looks like Regent to hand, Kavu to exile, which means Kavu is going to hit play here for Corey. And I think that's big in that it's two creatures against the smallpox that
Mhm,
Spike is threatening.
that's right.
That's flagstones for a little extra value on that smallpox.
To be honest, Spike is getting to the point where you can almost cast that Vein Ripper.
That's a good point.
We're almost there.
All
So
right,
there's the
step
classic
one.
synergy.
Yeah, step one, smallpox. This is what you want: smallpox, sacrificing flagstones. Corey, though, now has, unlike earlier, has plenty of blue cards for force and negation,
Mhm.
and has to decide if he does in fact care about smallpox. So it's an interesting one based on the fact that Soren is still in play, and so is Vein Ripper in hand.
Well, I mean, or he's gonna lose 3 cards if this resolves.
Hmm.
A land, a creature, a card in hand. So maybe it's just better to have at least one of those cards that to if you're gonna lose at least 2 cards, lose 2 cards in hand and keep 1 card in play.
Right.
And Corey agrees. Looks like Murktide is gonna get eaten.
Yeah. So Vein Ripper is going
Force
to hit the
negation.
graveyard.
Oh no, he let it resolve.
Yeah. Vein Ripper hits the graveyard from this. The Kavu sticks around. The Sorin is now, it looks like, wide open to get hit by the Kavu.
Mhm.
Just suddenly turned around for Corey here, who was able to work his way through that difficult turn and really just crucially had one creature left standing at the end of all of it, and now even has a leyline binding for extra. This is looking very, very good for Baumeister. Is it
Yeah.
five color? Pretty strong.
Yeah, all these new cards, the Leyline Binding, with this when this card first got played against me, I'm like, "It
Yeah.
does what? It does all that for 1 mana?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?" Truth be told, you can blow it up with so many cards. I mean, it's just an enchantment.
I mean, it's an O ring, right? An Oblivion ring
Mhm.
is, it's been a playable card in Magic more or less since it was printed. It's the flash, of course, that sets it apart.
And the
And
1
obviously
mana.
the creation of triomes changed everything. But
Mhm.
uh, Spike on the back foot here with this with gas to spare for Corey now, or rather answers to spare, which with the threat in play equates to the same thing. Look at that. One of the best draws Spike could hope for. A Celestial Purge on the Kavu. However, Corey gonna be able to burn Force of Negation here to save it, which
That
I
was
guess means Spike
interesting.
would be live to draw, another answer, right? At that
Mhm.
point, get rid of the Kavu and equalize the board. So, if you got to work your way through some answers, start early. But instead, Corey again just letting everything resolve.
Yeah, that's a wild take. We have nothing in play, or do we have a plan here? No, we're just gonna okay, you know what? Corey says,
Wow.
"Cards matter in this matchup. We're not gonna 2 for 1 ourselves." And boom, right off the
Okay,
top, we
sure.
have the Ragavan to attack, get 3 mana back, and have Force Negation up. And now this I
Wow.
mean, now Corey is super far ahead.
A ring has been exiled, so this is an interesting spot here. The ring gets exiled, so Spike will not have drawn that, and Corey will not counter it. But instead, Spike draws Thoughtseize, which does elicit a Force of Negation hard cast from Corey here, so able to counter it without having to burn one from his hand. And now is back in the same spot. Spike is top decking, Corey is dashing Ragavan and keeping up Force of Negation.
It
You
looks
were
like
right. Corey has just had it on cards, and Ragavan has obviously smoothed the way a little bit in terms of mana. But
Mhm.
this deck this is it five color decks looked pretty good here against honestly a smallpox deck that I thought would line up pretty well against what Corey was doing.
I know! And it turns out, like, these 5 color piles are just super strong. Even against cards we would think would interact super well versus them. Like, just
Yeah,
just so much card advantage. Yeah, sure. Well, I'll pitch a creature to Vein Ripper. Sure, I'll pitch another creature. I have
right.
millions of creatures to pitch to this thing.
Yeah, and the reality is that this game looks like a blowout now, right? Corey is down on
Mhm.
life, but up on cards and seems to have things well in hand. But basically, there was a turn where Spike had Planeswalkers and Corey was one card away from not being able to answer it, right? And if Corey doesn't
Yeah, right.
answer the Planeswalkers on that turn, instead it's Spike who starts rolling that snowball down the hill. It gathers, quite a bit as it goes, and you just roll on to victory. Instead, Corey was able to do the same thing with the Kavus and the Ragavans, just providing the the value he needed to get there. Now, Spike looking looking pretty
Looking
sad
for
with the
something.
running Urborgs off the top.
You see the respect from Corey. 5 mana up and says, I'm not tapping a single mana down. No, we're going to keep Force Negation and Counterspell up for the
Yeah.
2 unknown cards in Aspiring Spike's End. If only Corey knew there was just 2 donuts in hand.
He wants this repeat. That's what he's here, or to get a second title under his belt on these leagues. Playing tight. But really, we watched Corey let everything resolve. Sure, take my creature. Sure, take my. When we thought that he might fight over it, said, "I'm just not going to lose to you, and I'll find a way to beat you later." And this turns out
Hmm.
he was able to find the creatures off the top to do that.
All right, this is going to eat a Force of Negation.
Yeah, things seem well in hand, but Corey thinking it through, just uses the Force of Negation, trying to play through all the lines. This might be it if he runs that Ragavan out there. I think that was a 5/5. What a showing by Corey
Yeah.
on this deck. Like, look how many cards he's run through over there in his graveyard. And what we did not see at any point was the Leyline Scion
Yeah.
play. The 8 card package that we talked up just didn't even make an appearance. Didn't need it.
The bottom end of the curve is more than good enough to win the game.
Well, yeah, here's a Scion just for the namesake. But yeah, what a great showing here by Corey. Remember the format here for the MTGO Masters today is try to get 2 wins before you get 2 losses.
Mhm.
And Corey already being up a game looks like he is well on his way to that first victory.
So I think Corey is going to play the Scion to guarantee a lethal attack by next turn. Because
Mhm.
otherwise, if you attack with the Cavu, don't play Scion. Um, well, actually, also by playing the Scion, get that trample enabled by that Territorial Cavu, and Corey wins the match.
Good point. Corey Baumeister taking down the first match of the day.